Hello, this BTEC Sport and Exercise Science video is for Unit 2 Functional Anatomy. We are looking at the skeletal system and specifically we're looking at D3, the location of skeletal bones. We've already looked at the axial skeleton and the bones that make up the axial skeleton. This video is focusing on the appendicular skeleton. So just to remind you, the axial skeleton is the cranium, the vertebral column, the ribs, and the sternum. And you can see the red colouring over here. The appendicular skeleton are the two girdles, so our shoulder girdle, which is these two bones, and the limbs, the arms, and the pelvic girdle, the pelvis, and the limbs, the legs. So the limbs of our body are sometimes called our appendages. They are attached to our axial skeleton, and that might make sense to why this is called the appendicular skeleton. Let's look at the functions of the appendicular skeleton then. So there's a lot of bones that are involved in the appendicular skeleton. Fortunately, we don't have to cover all of those. So the first function might be an obvious one. These limbs, our arms and our legs, are predominantly long bones, which act as levers and enable us to move. So many of our sporting movements are based around our arms and our limbs moving. Again, you might also understand that especially our long bones, some of our flat bones are really important for blood cell production. Red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. And also our bones store minerals for us. Calcium is the probably most important one, but other minerals are stored in our bones, phosphorus, magnesium. Lots of other body processes, body systems use calcium. It's not just important for strong bones, and so we store the calcium in our bones, and when we need it elsewhere, we release it from our bones and it gets transported. For example, nerve impulses or muscle contraction relies on having some calcium too. So let's look at the bones of the appendicular skeleton. We'll look at the upper body first. So the shoulder girdle is what we would use to describe these two bones, the clavicle, which is the proper name for our collarbone, so I'd really like you to learn clavicle, and the scapula, which is this big shoulder blade. Now those two bones connect to form the girdle with which our arms attach. So this is a shoulder girdle. Obviously we've got one on our left and one on our right side. So the shoulder girdle is made up of the clavicle and the scapula. Then we've got the bones of our arms. So we've got this main funny bone, if you like, the humerus, connecting our shoulder and our elbow. And then we've got these two bones between our elbow and our wrist. The radius, which is thumb side, and the ulna, which is underneath. You need to find a way of remembering which is which, such that you could identify them on a diagram. So they're the bones, three bones of our arms that you need to know. They're all long bones. Then we've got the bones of our hands. Now you have to be quite careful here. Hopefully you already know that carpals are short bones. They are relatively squarish, cuboidish. They're similar width, height and length. They're short bones. But then we have the bones of our palm. Now the bones of our palm are metacarpals and they are long bones. You can see that even though they are relatively small in size, the shape means that they are longer than they are wide, and that's how we would determine them as being a long bone. So we've got short bones in our carpals, we've got long bones, our metacarpals in our palm, and then our fingers or our digits are made up of our phalanges. That's the name of these long bones. So metacarpals and phalanges are long bones. The appendicular skeleton, upper body, is made up of our shoulder girdle, which is where we attach the arms to the axial skeleton, and our upper body appendages, our arms. Here's a summary slide. Pause the video, have a look at it. It gives you a little bit more detail. Make sure you could name those. Let's look at the lower body then. So the equivalent of the shoulder girdle is the hip girdle or pelvic girdle, and that makes sense that it's our hip bones, or proper name, our pelvis. Now the pelvis is actually made up of several fused flat bones. The ilium, So this edge of the ilium here, which you can probably feel on yourself, is called the iliac crest actually. But this is a big flat bone which is fused together with the ischium. Now here you can just about see it on the diagram. There, the ischium provides a socket or a deep fossa for the femur to sit in, and that's our ball and socket joint of our hip. So the ilium and the ischium are the main bones of your pelvis that you need to know the names of. Your pubic bones, you might know, they come together at the front, but it's really the ilium and the ischium. The ischium is the main bone that your femur attaches to. That's the ball and socket joint, and they make up your pelvic girdle. Then we've got the bones of the legs, which I'm sure you know. There are 4 bones of the legs. The biggest bone in our body, the femur, this is a long bone. The tibia, which is our main lower limb bone, the shin bone, and the fibula that goes alongside it. The tibia is what, if you're not wearing your shin pads in football or hockey and you get hit, that hurts. That's your tibia. So be careful, because students sometimes call this tibia and fibia or tibula and fibula. Just be mindful of the tibia is the main shin bone and the fibula is the additional bone. But we've also got to acknowledge that the patella is part of the appendicular skeleton, and it is a special kind of bone called a sesamoid bone, which hopefully we know about already. So they're the 4 bones of the leg, and then finally we need to look at the feet. Again, already you should know that the tarsals are short bones. They're not perfectly cuboid or looking like a dice, but they are relatively cuboid in shape. So they are short bones. Then again, the sort of main section of your foot, the ball of your foot, are metatarsals. These are long bones. They're longer than they are wide. And similarly, our toes are our phalanges. We've got several joints there, haven't we? Your toes that can wiggle. So our phalanges are our toes. Our metatarsals is the main bit of our foot. And our tarsals are the short bones that help make up our the heel of our foot and our ankle joint. Again, so we've got pelvic girdles on our left and our right side. We've got our appendages and our limbs, which are our legs in this example. So again, a summary table of the lower limb bones. Please make sure you have a detailed look at that and pick up on any detail. I've offered you a bit more detail in those. Exam questions then. Here's an exam question that we've had already. Similar to the previous one for in the axial skeleton, isn't it really? Here's a picture. Name the bones that are A and B. So the radius is thumb side, the ulna is underneath. So hopefully you'd identify that one, and the small short bones of the wrist are the other one. For 2 marks, hopefully you got carpals and radius. Carpals and radius. Here's another example. The calcaneus is a bone in the foot. Name 2 other bones of the foot. So the calcaneus is actually your big heel bone. Fine, let me just go back to the picture. This is your calcaneus. This is your big heel bone. And it's allowed you to, where are we? Here. Say you've got the tarsals, the metatarsals, the phalanges. The talus is another specific name of one of the tarsals. The calcaneus is one of the tarsals too. So it's given you quite a bit of freedom, and you had to answer 2 of those to get your 2 marks. So here are all the bones you need to be able to identify, locate on an image maybe, or know where they are in the body and know what type of bone they are and maybe what job they do.